Hello and welcome to this week's OSINT Curious interview. My name is Laurent. You can find me on Twitter at LaurentBoro. And today I'm joined by my wonderful OSINT Curious colleagues. So before we introduce our special guest, let me just hand over to our first, to Matthias. Matthias, how's it going?
Hey everyone, this is Matthias, also known as MW OSINT on Twitter, and I'm really excited to be a part of this interview today. It's the first one that I'm a part of, and really excited to hear more about our guest today, and I'll pass it on to Michael first.
Michael James, Ginsburg 5150 on the Twitters. Very excited to be here. Pass off to Inez.
Hi everyone, Inez, IWN_LX on Twitter. So it's actually a personal pleasure to have a fellow Portuguese man here today. His name is Rui Barros. He's a data journalist from a Portuguese newspaper, daily newspaper, Público. He's done some amazing work with data, using data to write really interesting articles, like out-of-the-box ideas, and he's changing some things in journalism here as well. Although he doesn't consider himself an OSINT expert, he doesn't realize, but he uses it every day. It's one of those issues we've been talking here on the streams very often, how people use it and don't realize it is OSINT. And so I will kick it off with a first question. Rui, how's it been, how challenging has it been for you to find data to use to write a story?
Hello everyone, and thanks for having me. Actually that's the main challenge as a data journalist, because you rely a lot on data, as the name refers to it, because you need data to produce your stories, and sometimes it gets pretty complicated to find data, because the government doesn't publish any data set about something, and sometimes you get to be creative to find that data. There's one example that I like to use. When we started the first national lockdown during the COVID-19 pandemic, we were feeling like, okay, the country is changing. There are less people on the streets, but we and my editor was, okay, maybe that could be an interesting data story, like how much the country is changing. So to give you an example, we were thinking, okay, maybe people are not getting jobs now because we are in a lockdown and the economy, people are afraid about what's going to happen to the economy. But there were not official statistics on unemployment on that stage, because we were like on the first 15 days of the lockdown. So we decided, on this case, we requested the data from job posting website, and we asked them, okay, can you please give us the daily number of posts that you get, since January until now. And we actually were able to find there was a significant difference on the amount of job postings that were being published, and that was decrease of job postings was coincidence with the first day of lockdown. So that's the kind of example where you can be creative, to find a way to tell a story using data. Of course, I'm not using those numbers. Don't substitute the national numbers of unemployment. That it's not the same thing. It's not the same. I'm not saying that, but sometimes when you don't have data or official data about something, you can get this kind of data. So that's the main challenge, is to find data.
Rui, can I just quickly ask you, so for someone who's never heard of data journalism before, is it fair to say that data journalism is about collecting, processing, analyzing data to answer a specific question? Or
I think it's correct. It's correct to say that it's data. It's journalism that is data driven. Most of the times journalism is I used to say that if you had to teach a robot to make journalism, the recipe is pretty simple. I'm not saying it's possible yet to make the robots make journalism, but the recipe is pretty simple. You have an idea, or you have something new that just started. For example, imagine there's an attack in something, or something in reality. Then, okay, we need to report about that. That's the first thing that happens on the journalist's mind. Then you start to organize information, not data, information about how could you report on that. And then you start to think, okay, who I need to listen to write a story about that topic. You do your research, you do your investigation, then you can talk with people, and the final result is a piece. It can be on text, on audio, on video, whatever. Yeah. Now think about data on that. So we were thinking about information, so we need to research about something. Now think that you could actually produce journalism, but the first step on it could be data driven. And what I mean with data driven is, okay, there's a new database on that. Let's explore it. Let's interview that database. And after interviewing that database, and I like to use the expression "interview a database" because as a journalist, it is exactly what I mean, what I do. But when I talk with, for example, data analysts, they use the same expression, like I'm making questions to this database. And after doing those questions to that database, you could find a story on it. And if you find a story in it, then it's regular journalism.
Yeah, fantastic. And also for our listeners, so here you can see, if you want to check out Rui's work, you can find it. This is especially important for our podcast listeners. So it's Rui Barros with .com/project. So it's Rui Barros with .com/project. So you can find his work there as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of amazing stuff on there, and also a lot of great visualizations, which I think is something that is very important. And when I see something like this, I always ask myself the question: how did you get into this? As a start, and then what led you to journalism to basically express yourself and your work in that form?
Okay, that might be a long story, but I'll try to make it short. I was I've always been divided between what we in Portugal well, it's the same thing everywhere. What we call the humanities and the science, because I've always liked to read a lot. I've always enjoyed a lot of history, but I was also a guy of science. So I was always divided between those two worlds. Then when I was a teenager, I thought that I would like to be an engineer. Because even though I liked, I loved newspapers already. I was reading the newspaper every day. I love journalism, but I thought, well, maybe I'll be an engineer, maybe because that could give me a better job. So I decided to try to be an engineer. But when I finished high school, I said, look, I will not be happy as an engineer because I love journalism. So I decided to be a journalist. When I got to the regular journalism university degree, I had, I used to say that it was the perfect storm. I had already this background on science and maths, but I didn't really, I was pretty good at maths, but I wasn't, it wasn't my favorite thing in the world. But on the first year at college, I had the chance to study statistics. And finally, maths made sense to me because statistics was about the world. It was about stories. It was about people. It wasn't like maths just for using formulas and all that. So that was the first step. Then, and that's why I like to say that it was the perfect storm. I got to college when I was well, it was 2012, yeah, and that was more or less the time when all the big newsrooms in the world were starting to do really good projects with data journalism. Especially in my case, the main influences were The Guardian. They had the data blog that was like pretty fantastic and really out of the box at the time. And the New York Times was already doing some stuff, and then other projects like 538 started. I don't actually remember when 538 it started, but maybe it was back then. But like I was like a normal journalism student. I was like finding out like maybe I really love maths, just like I wasn't really paying attention to statistics, and statistics is exactly my thing. And I was starting to read those news outlets out there that were doing these fantastic jobs with data, and I was like, okay, but that's exactly what I want to do. I want to do these fantastic things with data, and I want to do these amazing works and these amazing data visualizations. And you referred about data visualization. I must confess that my first thing, the thing that got me attracted to data was the data visualization, because these newsrooms were starting to use mainly D3.js. That was like the new thing in town that could allow you to make those amazing charts, interactive charts. And I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. So I started to learn how to code, because I felt like if this is what I want to do, let me try to learn. And that's how I got interested in data journalism, to be honest.
Rui, so one of the works that you've done that's pretty amazing, and it was done in a combined effort with other countries, was to try to understand COVID-19 government contracts. Mm-hmm. And I remember we talking about it and the challenge that it was to collect that from a governmental database. Actually, in Portugal, we're fortunate enough that everything's quite transparent in that aspect, that everything's online. For those people who are listening now and are thinking like, okay, I would maybe really like to try this off, like this data idea of journalism, and who aren't already very good at scraping, what kind of tools or what kind of even like books or blogs or place, how does one start? Like if you're already like a journalist or a student and you know the basics, how can you, what would be your advice for someone who's actually starting now?
Well, I remember being on that stage pretty well, because that was like it was the biggest challenge, I remember reading those fantastic works that I was referring on my last answer, and thinking, how can I do that? And I don't think I have an answer for you, because it's more complex than what I can say right now. What I know is I was really project driven, so when I had this challenge, let's think like I want to find out how much my country is spending on COVID-19 contracts. I want to know which companies are getting the most out of these contracts. Okay, this is my goal. And then I need to be exactly as like a scientist. I need to, okay, I have this goal. Now I want to find something. Now I have to prepare a methodology. How can I achieve that? How can I find that? Okay, there is this source of data, but how can I collect this data? And don't be afraid to be silly asking stuff on Google, like, how can I scrape a website? How can I get the data from? I've done really dumb and broad questions to Google because fortunately nowadays there are a lot of great resources out there that will guide you in some way. And my second advice is, even if you have this goal and you don't know how to achieve it, because you are really clueless and you already try to Google a million times. You also another advice is like go over like GitHub or even some these data journalist projects, because most of the times we like to write our methodology. We like to explain to our readers how exactly we achieved that, how we did that, and that could also inspire you to prepare your project. Then my second advice is reach out to someone that for example, has more technical skills in some topic, and talk with them. I used to say that we have this is and Inês will understand me, because I think this is a really Portuguese thing. The worst thing, I'll try to translate it. I don't know if you use it in English, but the worst thing you can get is a no. People will say the worst thing that people will answer is no, I cannot help you. But most of the times, and this is from my experience, most of the times the community is pretty welcome, and they really, I really enjoy helping people. I really get happy when I get to help someone. The only problem here is time, most of the time. But I really enjoy helping, and I don't really mind if someone is stuck on some stuff and he says, look Rui, I'm really stuck, I don't know how to solve this thing. The worst thing I can say is, I don't have time now, but if you wait like some hours before I get to bed, give me 10 minutes to look at it, and I'll get you back, and I'll say, this is probably more complicated than you are thinking, and you probably need 1 week to solve this issue, or this is pretty fast, you just forgot a comma here, and it's pretty easy to solve. I think those advice are already good, and I can do mea culpa here. I was the kind, and I'm still the kind that is afraid to ask for help. Afraid is not the correct expression, and it's not also a shame. It's not shame. It's like it's the feeling that I'll be taking someone's time, and I'll probably sound dumb for not knowing this. And it's really stupid if you think about it, because no one knows everything. No one knows how to do everything in the world. And another advice that I have is, don't think that because that's not the best or most efficient way to do the thing that you are trying to do, that you shouldn't do it. My first projects were rubbish. I used tools that were not intended to do that. Like, I had to be really creative and like forcing those tools to do what I wanted to do, and the final process were not great. But I've learned a lot while doing those projects. So don't be afraid, to just because you didn't use the most efficient tool or the most, like, some, for example, some data folks or people that are starting with data journalism or data science, they say stuff like, oh, I use Excel here, and they're like kind of ashamed for using Excel. Excel is a great tool. Excel is perfect. Excel does great stuff. I believe that I did stuff with Excel that maybe Excel was not intended to do that, but like,
Yeah.
okay, I was able to solve the problem with Excel. Of course, then it's true. I've realized that Excel, on a specific time of my career, Excel was like holding me back. So when you feel that the tool is holding you back, you should obviously look for a better tool. I give you can imagine that you have to make a hole on the wall. You could actually, the best tool that there is a good tool to do that. But if you use another tool and it does the hole that you need, why would you be ashamed of it?
Exactly. No, but I think, Rui, you mentioned something very important there, your second advice, reaching out to people and asking. And this is exactly what we've been doing. This is also one of the reasons why we started OSINT in the first place. It's about teaching and learning from each other. So I learn constantly. Just the other day, I reached out to someone because I needed some very specific help with something very special. And I know that I don't know everything. That's just how it is. And they are experts for everything. So that's really, really good advice, reaching out and talking to people, and don't be afraid. Yeah. Matthias, do you have something to add?
No, I just thought it was interesting that you said the worst answer that you can get from someone is a no, and I think we have a similar ways of saying that in each and every language. But I just had to smile when I heard that, because earlier I was on the phone with a French guy, and French always say no to every question you ask because they always say that leaves the option to say yes later on. So that completely unrelated to this, but that's why I smirked when I heard you say that.
That is awesome. I had a question. I wanted to. I know as you're in data journalism, there's still the evidence of journalism in there. So I wanted to ask, with all the data aggregation and with all the collection and then actually putting it to a story, how do you avoid biases? How do you go through and stay neutral when collecting the data and then what the data tells you?
Well, that's the question that every journalist asks when they are reporting. Am I being biased here? Am I and that's problematic on data journalism, because some folks don't think that maths or code are not biased or could not, because it's super scientific and and the first step to be able to not be is realize that you can be biased. That's the first step, and that's I believe it's the most important one is to always ask yourself, okay, am I being biased analyzing this data? If you are aware of that, that's the first step, to don't do it. Then the other thing that fortunately journalism has already developed some how can I say it? Let's call it like I don't have the English word for it, but when a redundant system, when there are other things that prevent one single guy to screw up. So you have editors,
redundancies,
redundancy, exactly. You have editors, you have an all newspaper that would read your piece and will talk to you if they think, look, and mostly editors here have a very important role, because they are the guys that you talk every day. And you say, look, I'm facing this problem, and your editor will just ask, why don't you do it this way? Most of the times, in my case, that happens because I'm the only data journalist there. But so my editor is not like data savvy, you know. But he is a journalist, so he's able to prevent me from doing it. And another thing, and I already talked a little bit about it, is that mostly in data journalism, because I'm aware, and maybe that doesn't happen with other data journalists, I don't know, but here I can only talk about my work.
Sure.
One thing, like maybe because we are aware that people think data is super scientific and not biased at all because it's numbers. One thing that I really try to do is not also in my piece on the middle of the text have some kind of explanation what I did with the data. Like, of course, I cannot like be super descriptive because like people don't want to know what you did.
Sure.
So, but I try to say like I got this data from these folks, and this data can have this problem and this problem and this problem, and I try to say that in the middle of the piece, but also. And that's something that my editors like always laugh about my work, is that I always write really big mythologies on the end of the pieces, you know, saying I did that, doing that, and I use this and this and this. Of course, this data can have this problem, but I believe it's correct because of this. I also did, you know, I try to make sure my readers know what exactly was done on that piece, you know. I don't think my readers need to know how to code. I don't think I should publish my code and everybody be able to check it. That would be also a very good idea, you know, for journalists to publish that code. And I used to do it. I don't do it now, but we'll probably do it so in the future again. But what I do is like make sure that even if you don't know a thing about maths, even if you don't know a thing about code, you are able to understand what I did, and you are able to find a problem there, you know, and send me an email saying, Rui, your work is a piece of because you screw up, because that's not how you should do that. Obviously that exactly never happened, thank God, but of course there are some readers that write me emails saying I don't agree that you should have done that way, and I've learned a lot from that. So that's how I try to escape that.
Well, what you just described is basically you're collecting data from open sources. You're using a proper methodology, which you also explain to your readers, and then you're making an assessment based on that data. So that's open source intelligence.
Yeah.
And I know in each and every industry and job, people have a different word for that.
Yep.
But were you ever aware that you're conducting open source intelligence, or was this always data journalism for you? When did you come across the word OSINT?
Well, actually, it's a term that has been also around in some data journalist conferences and some data journalist literature. So I was familiar with it. I think, but as I said, and I think you exactly put it perfectly, because everybody has a different word for it. And I call it data journalism because that's what I do for a living, and that's what well, it's the name that I call it, you know. But probably as you said, when you see it from the outside, it's OSINT, and that's perfectly fine. I don't mind.
Well, we're all fellow OSINTers here, with you being a data journalist as well.
yeah. I think the only thing that probably differs, and I would like to have your I would like to have your input on this. Maybe the thing that differs data journalism here is the the journalism part, because obviously there are some journalism concerns about how you present the facts, and obviously, for example, when I write my final piece, I have to follow the same journalistic rules, so maybe there's the real difference between these two words is the journalistic part of it. I don't know, I would like to have your input on it.
I would say really it's only the audience. Journalism spans a much more global reach, as where OSINT usually is customer specific for either internal or external, whoever is asking for the request of the information. But yeah, I think a lot of the methodologies are somewhat the same, especially when presenting the information, because you still want to go through and tell the story in a way that is understandable to, from the CEO down to the data-driven people or whatever. So I think it's similar, Yeah,
I would agree, and also add, like, when it comes to OSINT in an intelligence context, it's about supporting decision makers. So someone has to make a decision, and there's a lot of uncertainty, and there's not a lot of information, but you kind of like have to make a good decision. So this is when OSINT comes in. And with data journalism, it's more about telling a story. You don't want to. I mean, of course, you can steer it in different directions, but it's very descriptive. But you have the same descriptiveness in OSINT, where it's a descriptive requirement, where you just explain what, where, when, how, why happened, for instance. So I can
that's the basic questions of journalism. What you just said. It's the questions that we need to answer in every piece that we write. So yeah, I believe the two words have a lot of in common. Yes.
Yeah. So welcome to the OSINT community then.
Rui, we are wrapping up here, but before we finish, I would like to ask you just talked about Excel. So in your daily basis, can you just quickly tell us what kind of software or what do you use? You've talked about Google, the importance of Googling stuff. You've talked about Excel. Can you say 3 or 4 things that you would say you need on an everyday basis?
Okay. My main language is R. I use R every day. I have our studio open all the time on my computer, and that's the language that I feel comfortable. But that could be also Python or any other scripting language. The only difference between, for example, as a data journalist, between what I could be doing with R and Excel is that R is much more powerful, and it's a script. Yeah, and Excel you cannot script it. So that's the biggest difference. But I use R all the time for everything, since scraping a website to do the data analysis. The second thing that I use R is doing those data analysis. And how can I say? I start by, as I said before, start to write some questions that I want to ask my database, and then I use R, to ask those questions and try to wrap it up with a final report for myself, only for myself. I have this database and I want to doing some data analysis and also do some exploratory data visualizations. I do it too with R. Because R has ggplot, and ggplot is great for doing those data visualizations. Then comes the second part, and that's when I need to make the final part of the project. There could be a simple text to be published on the newspaper on the next day, with a picture on the top and an headline and some text, and that could also happen, and happens a lot. But a lot of the times it's not that, because as a data journalist, I also believe that data can be really powerful to give a personalized experience to our readers. So what happens is that most of the times my projects also result on what like to call news applications. And what are those news applications? It's just a story that is interactive and that allows the user to explore the data. Not as a dashboard. I have some kind of dashboard phobia. Not because I don't find them useful. I just think that we are publishing dashboards all the time without letting people know what that exactly means. So you get kind of overwhelmed with lots of graph charts everywhere, but it doesn't help the reader understanding the data. So I try not to build dashboards, but I call it news apps. Those are like applications with text, but also charts, and that allow the reader to explore the data. That means that I am also a web developer. So that's the second step. I do that web development part. Sometimes it's just for doing an interactive data visualization. Sometimes it's something more complex. And for that, I use VS Code. That's my code editor, but could be any other code editor. And yeah, as technologies that I use, well, apart from the basic HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, I like to use Vue.js as to build those news applications. That's a framework. So, and for data visualizations, I love D3.js, but it really brings me down because it's super complicated to use. So most of the times I use Shard.js for some simple shards, and I think that's like the main things that I use on my daily basis. Then, well, for actually getting data, it really depends. It depends on the project that you are.
And I'm going to have to go out and Google all that so I understood what you said. I saw Michael was nodding all the time. He knew those things. And this is for me again, starting point for OSINT to go OSINT what you mentioned.
I've had some experience in our studio and with data analytics and stuff. I read Mining Social Media, which was done by one of the BuzzFeed editors, and they did a lot of the same thing. They would take contextual social media information, whatever, and follow it through and make stories out of that stuff. A lot of more of the data journalism. That got me really interested in data science and scraping using R and RStudio, whatever. And it's a little bit more than I can handle right now, just mastering Python and JavaScript. But it is something that is very, very interesting to me. So I was glad I could keep up with the conversation. It was very
well, you allowed me to geek out. So
yeah, that's always awesome. That's the best.
Awesome. All right, Rui, thank you so much for taking the time and to talk to us about data journalism. It was really, really interesting. And I hope all the listeners enjoyed this as well. So certainly it was really, really good. And there's always one last question that we ask every interviewee, which is there anything that you want to learn? Is there something new you would like to learn? And if you can give us a brief answer, it would be amazing.
Brief answer. Is there anything new? Well, there's a lot. There's too much things that I want to learn. Yeah. Well, but on the well, lately I've been really focused on AI and machine learning because that can really save your life as a data journalist. So that I've been focused on that lately. But it's pretty new for me a lot of times, and the other thing that I really want to learn is D3.js because it's still like the thing that takes me a lot of time to wrap my head around, and actually improve my art skills. It's always like my main goal. But yeah, there are too many things.
That's one that I have to learn. I've never heard D3.js, so I'm very interested. So thank you for giving me some homework. I appreciate it.
Rui, thanks again so much, and also thanks to all our listeners. And if you like these interviews, please share them as well, and also subscribe if you haven't so far. And also maybe you want to consider supporting us via Patreon. So check this out. If you want some socks or some mugs or anything else, we've got also some merch. So check this out as well. And yeah, so from our side, like, thank you so much, Rui, for taking the time again. And
thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And also, let me just show again to our viewers. So make sure to check out Rui's work, ruimgbarros with r.com/projects. That's ruimgbarros.com/project. So you can check out his work, and also make sure to follow him on Twitter. This is at Rui_Barros17. Yeah, so thank you so much for being here. And yeah, thanks.
Yeah, very awesome. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you, Rui.
Great to talk to you.
All right, see you guys.